Hello, today I'm here to discuss how to stop targeting, an overview. Several people have asked me recently, how did I get my targeting to substantially be reduced? It hasn't stopped, and it probably won't stop while I'm working on this, but at least it has been substantially reduced to the point that I've been able to get back some quality of life. And I want to make sure that I can help other people do the same thing. So first of all, there are different issues when it comes to getting targeting to stop on a mass scale and when it comes to getting targeting to stop on an individual scale. So let's first look over just as general rules, but please keep in mind that based on people's situations, these rules may have to be broken. But as general rules that worked for me and that I have thought about with regard to our group on a larger scale, this is what I think would help. One, I think we need a congressional inquiry or at least a truth commission, and I think that as people who have been targeted, we need to be willing to let perpetrators be provided with immunity to testify as to what exactly has been happening. They have most of the information in such a covert project as to what has been going on and who exactly has been providing the funds and so forth, whether it's only government funds, for example, or also certain corporations' funds as well. People to be willing to testify about that who have inside information as to that, I believe, are not going to do so unless they have immunity on an individual basis. And that does not mean that targets have to give up on the idea that we could get some compensation for what has been done to us, because we could still be compensated by the larger groups of targeting entities, for example, the government, if the government is indeed involved, and for example, companies or corporations and so forth, if they are indeed involved. But I think that it's important not to make things personal with any particular perpetrators, if that can be helped. And I think it's important not to go after any individual perpetrators, again, if that can be helped, especially if that perpetrator is really one of the perpetrators who appears to be coerced and really would rather not be committing these crimes and would be willing to testify about them if only they did not have to worry about themselves being prosecuted. Now, on an individual scale, there are some things that I've found to be quite helpful. One of them is to address some of the technological issues, such as jamming frequencies and blocking out electromagnetic energy and so forth. I will not go into detail as to that right now, but I will say that it's very analogous to computer viruses, where unfortunately some people with great intellectual gifts have nothing better to do than to put their minds into developing viruses to infect people's computers and so forth and to cause havoc. That's really not very nice, and thankfully there are some other people who are at least as bright who dedicate themselves to countering attempts to intrude on people's computers and so forth. So, some of those technologies that help block viruses or other attacks or attempts to attack computers are better than others, and these things can be researched. And similarly with targeted individuals, or as I say, extra targeted individuals, since it seems to me that the public at large is being targeted with these technologies, there are certain technologies being used against targets that can be blocked, but then once you come up with a way to block those, if you continue to be a target, there will probably then just be a shift in how you're being targeted, and you will have to continually be dynamic about counteracting those. Now, aside from that, there are three things that I found to be particularly helpful. One of them is to carefully out the targeting. And the biggest rule of thumb I have for when I say to be careful about how you out the targeting, but to proceed to do so, is to avoid making things personal with a particular individual perpetrator by, for example, naming or identifying a particular individual involved in the targeting, with some room for exception. For example, if you feel like at any moment they might make you disappear, then you might be better off to let people know who that immediate threat appears to be, if you have good evidence as to that, and to explain why you're concerned that that person might make you disappear, have something to do with making you disappear, so that they would have some reason to think twice. In that case, you would want them to know that you have circulated their name, and you would want them to think twice about doing something to you, such that if something should happen, they would be the first suspect. Now, there are some other things that can be done that I've found in my personal experience to be very helpful. One of them is to avoid living alone. But of course, keep in mind that once you're a target, perpetrators look to seek just about any angle you could think of to get into your life. So you have to be careful not to go to the other extreme, versus living alone, and careful that you don't end up living with someone who is facilitating the targeting against you. So basically, without being fearful, just be cautious and look to live with someone or some people, plural, for example, family, if that's possible and feasible, to who is intelligent and aware of the targeting and well-intentioned. They don't have to completely agree with everything that you think and so forth. It's a difficult thing to wrap people's mind around. It's a difficult thing for me to wrap my mind around, that this is taking place, and I've experienced it firsthand. So have patience with people who are meaning well and just maybe can't quite grasp what you're going through. That's okay. It's worth it to try to surround yourself with a support group, even if it's not a perfect support group, than to be living alone. Okay. Thirdly, there's the issues that is mostly what's focused on in this Freedom of Mind series, which in some ways are very simple, but in other ways are rather complex, and thus it's the focus of this series. And that's basically reprogramming or refocusing your thought patterns, your mindset, so that you get out of a victim mode and into a strong and thriving mode once again, as I believe you probably were before the targeting happened. So take back your mental strength, and basically don't, if the perpetrators are trying to make you tired, for example, there's apparently 3 types of brain waves that have to do with sleepiness to some extent, on some level. Those are the beta waves, the theta waves, and the delta waves, as opposed to the alpha waves that help people to be on the alert side. Okay, so if you are, for example, being bombarded, like a lot of targets have expressed to me that they're bombarded when they're trying to wake up and focus and do something. If you're bombarded with these frequencies that just make you feel so sleepy that you can hardly concentrate, then your job is to try to get your brain onto a different wavelength, the alpha wavelength, that helps you to focus. And luckily there are some things, including music and what they call brainwave music therapy, that can help you to do that. They can play the sleep-inducing type of waves, but even for free at some sources, you can find tape loops where you can play yourself some alpha waves and help yourself to get up and out of bed and focus. So I hope this has been very helpful to you. I'm going to see if perhaps in the next section or installment, Dr. McIntyre would have something to add. and I look forward to hearing how applying these suggestions helps you, and if you have some additional ones that will be helpful to people in our situation. And feel free to put those in the comments. I'd be very happy to see those up in the comments section, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.
I'm Dr. McIntyre. I'm glad to be with you again. And our topic today, I think you'll follow us very clearly as we get into this a little bit. Well, John, tell me why that you got involved in that process. He says, well, he made me mad. He made me angry. He called me a name. I said, well, John, now, did you allow him to make you mad? Or did he actually make an aggressive act toward you? For example, if you allowed him to push your buttons and make you mad, then in a sense he was actually taking control of you, your mind, your body, and your soul. Now, do you want anybody to take control of your mind and your body? Because if you don't, then you have to be able to deal with someone who would love to push your buttons. What happens, John, if you don't get upset or get angry? What's this individual who's trying to push your buttons going to do? What's going to happen to him? That's right. He's going to get angry and he's going to get mad. And guess who takes control of him at that point? That's right, you do. So the moral of the story is not to let someone take control of your mind and your body. At the same time, make sure that you do not allow them to push your buttons. And when you don't allow them to push your buttons, they're going to get angrier and angrier and angrier. And what's going to happen, John, of course, is that you will take control of them. Now, how do you get started in doing this? What's one of the secrets involved in not letting them push your buttons and not allowing someone else to take control of your mind and your emotions? Well, first of all, you have to think about a book that had a tremendous impact on my life. Although it was written in 1949, I sincerely believe it was written under inspiration. It was written by Norman Vincent Peale, the minister who started Guidepost. And it's called The Power of Positive Thinking. And it enables you to visualize what you want to happen. And it says to you that with Christ Jesus, all things are possible. And the influence that this book has had on my life is immeasurable. Now, we've practiced before. We practiced visualizing the most beautiful place on earth and putting yourself there. We practiced relaxation exercises. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes under stress, even extreme stress. And when you can do the relaxation exercises and put yourself in the most beautiful place on earth, then as you feel targeted and feel stressed, you can simultaneously relax and put yourself in the most beautiful place on earth. And you can deal with just about anything in that manner. I want you to practice that. Practice visualizing what you want to happen, visualizing yourself calm and collected, because you can't think clearly when you're stressed and fearful. So visualize yourself the way you want to be and the kind of life you want to live. And take that step today. And if you want to get one of those books and read it, it's very small. It costs about $5 at the bookstore. But it has changed my life, and it might have a change taking place for your life.